This is Progress Culture. Progress Culture is a weekly happening where master drummer Paul F. Murphy and I share live improvised music and impromptu conversations with people from various fields and expertises about community, value, art, science, freedom, and progress for all. We are excited to share it all with you, so have a listen and see what's going on this week on Progress Culture. Now, let's get into the show. But first, let's hear some music. Howdy everybody, Dominic Fragman here from Sonic Spirits with Paul Murphy from Sonic
Hello.
Spirits. And also Sonic Spirits features poet Jere Carroll, who we are excited to be working on getting back in here for another show soon.
Yep.
So, Sonic Spirits, hello and welcome to Progress Culture. We have here today the director of TechPort, Tommy Luganbill, and the executive director of Southern Maryland Loves You, Matt Hayes.
Hey.
What is going on?
Yo.
What up? Good to see you guys. I was thinking the other day, and wondering if anybody in here has ever had a near-death experience?
Yeah.
You have?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody care to share?
Yeah, but mine kind of like transcends into the supernatural.
That's perfect, I think.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm allowed to talk about it?
I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't be. I think that you two are the guys that would decide what we're allowed to talk about.
Yeah, I don't really care anymore. I don't really, bar none, doesn't matter to me these days. Yeah, okay. So, so just so you understand, so I grew up in a house that's extremely old. Or, I mean, down here, there's houses older than my house that I grew up in. But I grew up in a Victorian house, built in probably around the 1840s. So it's in Rockville, and it's in the old part of Rockville, which used to be a really small farming town. And it was one of the original houses of a farmer who was like, had a ton of land in Rockville. But over the years, obviously, as Rockville got developed, different patches of houses survived, but they became neighborhoods. So growing up, I had always known that over the course of people who had owned the house, there had been a couple major fires. And one of them in particular was kind of like lore to the local firemen, because it was right when photography became popular, and it was like a 4-alarm fire. And it was kind of like everybody knew, there was this huge fire, they saved this old house. And that was actually one of the reasons why my parents back in the 70s could afford it. Because when they bought it, it was from this old lady who had the house passed down generation after generation. Mm-hmm. And she had done a lot to fix the house up from the fire, and kind of maintain some of the things that were destroyed, but also there was some work to be done. So my parents bought it in late 70s. So when I grew up in it, my parents had been in the house for 30, 40 years at that point in time. And there were all, growing up, I never felt like scared or anything like that, but I always kind of felt that the house was old and that there was an old karmic energy to the house, right? I'll give you an example. Yeah. Growing up, it was nothing for me to feel like the rumblings, and my bed was kind of rumbling, right? And so I always used to just say, oh, that's just the old heaters in the house, right? And then I remember one time I said something to my sister, because it's a small old house, and I said something, I was like, she's in the bedroom over, I was like, hey, Steph, and she's like, yeah, I'm feeling that too. And I was like, oh, it's the heaters though, and she's like, it's summertime. But we weren't scared, right? Because for whatever reason, the presence never scared us. So to the point of the near-death experience, I was probably, I think I was like 16 or 17, and it was probably late spring, and it was like a Saturday, and just a normal night. Everybody in my family was still living in the house. My sister's a little bit older than me, but she still lived there. And I went to sleep. And I'm going to tell you my memory, and then I'll tell you what my parents' memory was. So I go to sleep, normal night, and my recollection is that something shook me awake. Just like how you're falling asleep and you feel like you're falling or something?
Right.
Okay, this was a force shaking me. Wake up, right? Telling me, wake up. So my memory is that I ran into my parents' bedroom, again, smaller house because it's old, and I started to yell, wake up, everybody needs to wake up, everybody wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. It's a vivid memory.
Right.
And as soon as I did that, everybody runs downstairs, and the whole kitchen in my parents' house is on fire.
Whoa.
The whole kitchen. Okay.
Wow.
So there's smoke everywhere in the house. And we call the fire department, and they're able to put everything out. But like tons of damage to the kitchen, and smoke is everywhere. So the fire department basically tells us that the amount of smoke in the house was at a level where we were all under CO2 poisoning, and we were all just basically goners. All of us. And they were like, "You're really lucky that you woke up." And
wow.
So then we had to, for the night, we had to go stay in a garage because we have a finished garage, and there's like an upstairs in it, and like the four of us are like going to sleep in it, and we're like coughing up soot and blowing soot out of our noses. And I started talking to my parents finally about like, yeah, good thing I woke up and screamed at everybody to wake up. And my mom tells me, she's kind of like, yeah, that's not really what happened. I'm like, okay. And she's like, yeah, you were just standing over me while I was sleeping, and you were just quietly whispering, telling me that I needed to get out of bed. And she's like, it was kind of eerie because you literally were just standing over top of me. and she goes, and then I woke up and realized that there was smoke everywhere, and I'm the one who made everybody go downstairs. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So we're like, well, let's just, this is okay. So we started to diagnose everything with the insurance company, and they were like, oh, well, maybe someone left the knob on the stove on. Nope. Oh, maybe there was a wire shortage. Nope. And literally to this day, no one has any clue how the fire started, nor why I woke up, right? Because we were all basically like under the CO2, you know how it makes you go to sleep. And for what it's worth, still to this day, people say, "Oh, aren't you afraid like something supernatural lit the fire?" And I'm like, no, I'm more happy that whatever shook me awake, whether that happened or not, I don't know. Something woke me up that caused me to go into my parents' room and wake them up. So for me, I know that's not like my life flashing before my eyes, but I'd say I was pretty damn close to dying.
Right.
And actually my whole family too. And we had 2 dogs, and they were fine because we put them outside.
Were you in the moment of the thing? Was there? When? At what point did you like sort of realize like, oh my God, like?
Yeah, when I went downstairs and the whole kitchen was on fire.
And what happened in your brain at that point?
We all started grabbing things and just started like pouring water on as much things as we could, and called the fire department immediately, and they showed up within like 5 minutes. It was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like I have follow-up questions, but I wonder if I should hear if anybody else has, because I feel like the follow-up questions would kind of be similar to like, at least in my brain right now.
When you woke up, did you smell the smoke, or did you just wake up and then run in and wake up your parents?
I mean,
don't remember.
I mean, my memory is me being shaken awake.
Yep.
And me jumping out of bed, running to my parents' room, yelling to everybody in my family to wake the hell up and go downstairs. But apparently that isn't what actually happened. But that's how I perceived it.
Well, it might have actually happened.
Could have, maybe. I mean, maybe my mom's memory is wrong, but I'm inclined to believe her more just because I was a little bit out of body, sort of. I mean, I can physically remember being shaken awake. So,
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any?
No, I mean, the closest I actually have to nearing death was I was only about 12 years old, and I was climbing a tree. And I was about 25 feet up in the tree.
Wow.
And I fell. And when I fell, I was hitting branches on the way down.
Nice.
And I landed flat on my back. And for like one moment, I just couldn't move at all, and I really couldn't even think. I was just seeing, and all I could see was the tree. And then eventually, just a couple seconds after that, I got up and I went home, and then I found out that I had broken my arm. So, that's like as close to it as I've gotten, I believe.
Even you've been in a pretty bad car accident.
Yeah, I've been in
But that
several car accidents.
Do
Yeah, but I didn't really, I wasn't like thinking of them as being near death. That's, I knew they were like, really happening. And as it was happening, you could see a lot of stuff happening. And along with that, when I was like 15, I had a 650 Triumph motorcycle, and I was in a field. This was up in Massachusetts, and I was in the field, and I was like riding it, or more like it was riding me, I guess. And I was hit third gear, and I went over a stone wall, and there was a tree right in front of me that I was going to hit. And what happened was, as the bike hit the tree, and the bike literally sort of flipped me over it past the tree, and I just landed in the dirt. Of course, I had to pay for the broken front end and, handlebars.
But you never felt like it was like a near-death thing.
At that split second, I didn't know what was going to happen, because I know if I hit that tree that I was going to be dead.
Yeah, right.
I knew that. And how that bike hit it and flipped me away from it, it was hard for me to believe.
Right.
Because there are other trees there as well. The stone wall, is in a big field, and there were trees on the other side of that wall.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jesus. I've been in a couple different car accidents that scared the crap out of me, but also didn't make me feel like I knew I wasn't going to die. So there's a difference. But that's pretty scary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've been in a few car wrecks. No scary ones on the street.
Yeah.
But I backed a car into a wall at like 90 something miles an hour.
Wow.
On the racetrack, my Formula car. And that's like, the car left the track at like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it had like a front steering issue that happened in the middle of a race while I was like sparring off with other people, and then the car went the other way, and that was it. And all I could do was, stomp the brakes, which is what we do in that case.
All right.
And then you're out of control, and you land where you land, and my car went into the wall backwards, and it really didn't hurt that much, but like you don't know what's going to happen until it happens.
Yeah.
So that was a fun one. And then they always put me in that position for like the safety marshals when I would work, because I had the experience, knew how to handle it. And I had like one other really weird wreck where I'd spun out and crashed into a tire wall that was like a whole bunch of tires screwed together with wood screws, like 8 feet tall, and then it all cascaded down on top of me, so they'd like dig me out. And then
Did those feel like near-death things?
That second one, not so much. The first one, yeah, because I hit that wall pretty quick. But I hit it in a way that it really didn't hurt. I went in backwards, so it was like the back of the seat, Yeah. It's not even like the seat belts. So that was definitely one that kind of shook me up, but I got back on it pretty quickly. And there'd been some really bad wrecks in that same spot, in that same way. Normally, when people go off there, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And then I've been chased by a mama bear. Got between her and the cubs.
Whoa.
So have I, by the way.
Yeah.
Really?
Whoa.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know if that really counted.
I didn't think about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that one really counted. But like, I was with my uncle and my brother, and I was definitely the slow one, because I was like 12,
Yeah.
But
I mean, in your brain, in these instances, for you and you, like, was there a point in that moment where you're like, yeah, I could die right now, like I might die.
Yeah. I mean, we got out of there. Like my family, my upbringing prepared me well for the outdoors and like what to do, and we weren't trying to get between the mama and the cubs. It just kind of happened, and then there you were, and then. It was a black bear, not a grizzly bear, so they're not that aggressive, and they want you out of there.
Yeah.
So I got out of there, and then that was fine. It could have gone the other way, but it wouldn't, I don't think. But it scares you. It's a story to be running from a bear for a while.
The bear thing, that's funny that he said that, because I've had like 2 very close encounters with bears, and so I think kind of like what you're getting at is like, what is the reaction, or what how do you feel? Yeah. And the first one was with babies like him, and I was in the top of the Tetons. And I was literally at the top of like huge canyon. Takes you 7 hours to get there, so there's just no one to help you. and that one scared the crap out of me, because these 2 I'm just like hiking up the trail with my wife, and the 2 babies walk across, and I was like, oh shit. And she's like, what? I'm like, the babies are obviously, with the mother. Yeah, so we just ran, and we had to hide behind a boulder for like 30 minutes. Oh. The one that scared me the most was in Yosemite. We were on like a trail, and it was high up, but there were like people, and we were like, all right, we'll stop on the trail very quickly to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich very quickly. And the reaction, I think, was the funniest part, was we're just sitting on a log, and like he said, I mean, it was a brown bear, but this was like a 9-foot brown bear. It was huge. And when I saw it at first, the reaction was, oh, am I seeing this bear? He's literally just walking like 15 feet away from me towards me right now. And I was like, yes, that is a bear. And then the reaction becomes immediately, just run like hell. Right. And so the feeling was first shock, or like disbelief, I guess I should say. Right. And then as soon as the disbelief subsided, it was sprint. And it was just, we ran so fast. Right. And like an idiot, I don't know why I didn't just leave the sandwich, but like I took it with me. and so for the rest of the hike, I was so scared the bear was gonna like come find me. But it's disbelief. I smell your sandwich. Disbelief, and then the fight or flight thing totally kicked in. Right. And it was like, yeah, I'm not gonna fight a bear.
Yeah. I mean, I've run into a bunch, but I've only been chased that one time. Like.
Yeah, they're really fast.
We were a little lucky too, because it was a hill, so like we were up the hill. Like the bear had to go up like 10 feet. It was pretty steep, and so we were already up there, and so we had a little bit of a head start. But.
I'm more afraid of mountain lions though, because bears are stupid. And they're not stupid, but bears, you can at least hear them when they walk. Right. Mountain lions make sure that you can't hear them. And they hide in weird places because they're basically cats. Yeah. And if they want to murk you and just take you out, that's it.
They can.
There's black bears in St. Mary's County.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Yep. I know 3 sightings in the last 5 years.
Yeah, they're in Montgomery County.
All in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
No, these are parts of the reason why I don't walk in the woods at night anymore.
Doesn't matter much around here. The only thing you really got to worry about is rattlesnake or copperheads stepping on a copperhead.
So, in these experiences that made you feel like there was a possibility that your life would be ending, did that do anything to you? Did it change you? I was reading this thing at some point where it was talking all these stuff about. I mean, there were much more, I guess, these out of body and near-death experiences in this particular stuff that I was reading was much more intense or whatever, where people actually would see the light, as Brian was asking, and the kinds of things that it does to a person having that experience. I don't know, but I guess it's definitely not the same across the board, but these things had significant impacts on the way people perceived living at all after that.
Mine weren't, like you said, any of these super crazy ones where it's like almost unbelievable that you had survived it. You know, like
Sure.
the airplane disintegrated and you fell 1,000 feet and the tree branches just so happened to, you know, kind of story. But I would say most of my takeaways like a learning experience to better like know signs in the future. Like I had one, so I was on a mountaintop, like tippy top of a pointy mountain in a big open area, and like my I started seeing like blue haze, and my hair just felt weird. And I like wiped it away. You know how it like sticks up occasionally, and then like 5 seconds later, it felt kind of weird again, and it was like starting to get in my vision, and I wiped it away again, and then it came back, and I saw like kind of this blue haze, and I looked up at it a little closer, and they were like little like electric shocks, and then I started to feel it like on my arm hairs too, and I was like, time to get the hell out of like where I'm standing right now. And I ran, and I like ducked into it was actually it was like where you could drive cars all the way to the top, so I ran back to the parking lot and I jumped between two cars because they're metal.
Yeah.
And then a lightning bolt went horizontal across the sky, like not right where I was, but like it went from over there to over there, like in front of me off of the cliff. And so, you know, it was like, you know, when your hair sticks up real big, you know, that's like the thing you're supposed to get out of there for the lightning. But also, when it just feels a little fuzzy and weird for the first time, it's probably time to start doing something. And also gave an indication on like, how long does this last, and how much time do you have, and what do you do, and how does it react? Or when I first had the big wreck in my race car, then a couple older guys came over to me and they're like, all right, now you can feel a little more comfortable in it, and you're gonna hit things a little harder now, you can be a little more aggressive, because now you're not afraid of flying off the track at speed, because now you've experienced it and you know what it's like, and it's gonna kind of be okay. And I would say it's kind of like that. And like bears, I've been chased by a bear. I don't live in a place with like a lot of bears, but when I was young, we spent a lot of time around them. So like I've always been fairly comfortable with them. And then once I got chased by brown bears, and you know, of course they've like raided your camps and torn up your packs and whatnot, then you, I don't know, you get more comfortable with the experience, and you start to realize that like some of those maybe weren't as near death as you thought. Like, I don't know what would have happened if I didn't run from the mama bear. Probably wouldn't have worked out well, but, you know, I didn't necessarily need to do a whole lot to get out of there. And she was clearly throwing some strong warnings that were unmissable, that would result in me running no matter what. So, like, really, she was controlling me and just telling me to get out of there, and I got out of there.
say there's probably a lot of experiences that I had where I was close to death, but didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people hear about when you're younger, your sense of mortality is just totally foggy. I think I, personally, through some crazy things in my life, obtained my sense of mortality younger than most, which I'm actually pretty grateful for. I have found, I don't know if this is true, but just looking around, a lot of people start to sense mortality after they have a kid, right? So now, lucky for me, I've been paranoid since way before I had a kid. But a lot of other people, it's like it kicks in once they have a kid. Mine was probably like mid-20s. But before I knew that, oh yeah, you might die, I did a lot of stupid crap. And like the one that I'm thinking about in particular where I was probably super close to like just eating the dirt was there was like this huge hurricane that came up the coast and it hit the coast of Maryland and Delaware. And at the time I fancied myself as a small wave surfing aficionado. And I was nothing great, but I could ride waves or whatever. And I had a longboard, and I remember, I think it rained so much and the hurricane was so bad that I went to the University of Delaware and we got out of school. So we were bored and we were like, oh, let's go down to my parents' beach house in Bethany. This is like an hour away. And so we got there and like all the roads were flooded and the waves were just like insanely big. And so on the East Coast, for waves to be between 13 and 20 feet is
Very
stupid.
That's wild.
Right? Especially because our waves don't necessarily crash on a reef and they don't crash on a sandbar. They just crash, they only crash 50 to 100 yards from the shore. So when they crash, it's on the shore. So I was like, after a long night of partying and because we had a good time, and then the next morning I was like, oh yeah, I'll go surfing, and everyone was like, are you sure about that? I was like, yeah, it'll be fine. And so I started paddling out, and the waves were like freaking huge, and they were only letting people in the water that had like a craft. Like if you had a boogie board or a surfboard, you were allowed to go in. And it took me.
It's a good proof that you can handle it.
I literally just wanted to try it because they were beautiful. They were huge and they were breaking very nicely. And it took me like 30 minutes to paddle out past where the waves were breaking. And I've never been so tired in my life. And wave came in and I'm like, yes. So I drop in and I'm like, I did it. And then it just freaking destroyed me.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I can definitely do it.
Yeah.
So then I paddled out again. What I didn't realize is that the lifeguards were like literally blowing their whistle at me for like a good 15 to 20 minutes telling me to come in.
Yeah.
But I just could not hear them. So finally, after getting like totally demolished 2 or 3 times, the lifeguards actually swam out and they were like, yeah, we're rescuing you. And I was like, why? I'm fine. And they're like, you're not fine. And they literally pulled me in. And when they pulled me in, they dragged me in, and then I got to the shore and I was like, oh, I'm not fine. And I literally just leaned over and started puking everywhere. And my friends were like, yeah, we don't really know what you were thinking when you did that.
Interesting.
So, you know what I mean? So I think that there's probably a lot of those stories that people don't even, it doesn't have a recall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have a very similar story. I was in Hawaii. I was in Maui. I went to Maui. My brother had lived out there for about a year and then came back home and was like talking about moving back out there. But, of course, it's summertime. Let's go and, let's go to Maui for a week or two. And I got friends we can stay with and all this stuff, right? So he leaves maybe a day before I leave. So fly out there, get off the plane. He picks me up and he says, well, we don't have anywhere to stay. And I was like, all right, well, let's just figure it out, So we're bouncing around doing our thing, and a couple days go by of us staying on the floor or wherever in different places, and then we end up we're on this beach called Fletcher's in Maui, which is like right outside of Kaanapali. And I have never been there. I've been to Hawaii before, and I know when I go to Oahu and go to the North Shore that there's big waves at Waimea Bay and the pipeline and yada, yada, yada. I do not get in the water when the waves are that big because I have no experience with it, you know? But I've been in the water plenty of times. I could swim. I could do these things. I can't surf, but... So we go to this place, Fletcher's, and the waves, unbeknownst to me, were abnormally large that day. And I knew that they were large, but I didn't know that they were abnormally large. Right. And my brother and his buddy, who had been living out there, said, well, great, let's get in the water. And I was like, all right, well, these guys wouldn't say let's get in the water if it wasn't a thing to do. Maybe they know better than me. So he goes in the water, and I go in the water, and this set of waves comes in, and they're like double overhead. And I've never been in anything that big in my life, and I'm just looking at this stuff. And I start swimming out past the waves because I'm like, I don't want to be in this, you know. So I swim out past the waves, and then I start going, well, crap, I don't know where the rocks are, and I don't know where the sharks are. I've never been here, so I was okay because I was out past the waves, but then I started to freak out, and I started swimming back in, and I was getting wrecked. And I just started yelling. And I was yelling for my brother because I was like, well, he must be okay. I'm doing terrible right now. And so I'm screaming and yelling. The lifeguards are probably just like, look at these idiots. They shouldn't have done this.
Right.
They never even moved. And I was in the water, and I just started getting rocked, and I was getting tossed around and hitting the bottom. The waves were smashing me on the ground and picking me back up and flipping me around, and I got to the point where I was like, all right, I got to do something because I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die right now. I'm tired. I've been, I'm not whatever. Getting worked by these waves. They're smashing me on the ground. I didn't know if I was bleeding or anything like that. And I said, okay, you got to think. You have to do something. Yep. Like you have to. So I said, all right, look, you just got to chill out. You got to calm down, and you just have to. When I was getting to the top of the water, but it was so quick and so violent that I couldn't breathe. When I got up there, by the time I realized that I had time to take a breath, I was getting sucked back under. So I said, all right. I figured out, like, all right, cover your face. So I was like, I got to make sure I'm not getting hit on the ground and it'll bust my face open and I won't be able to function. So I covered my face, and I thought, whenever you're not, this is all in the moment, too. I'm realizing these thoughts in my head, like, all right, when you get pushed up to the top, you can't breathe because you don't have enough time. So you got to figure out when you're going to be able to breathe. So when you feel the pressure relief from the top of your head, start to take a breath then, because you're going to pop up. And that's going to be the only amount of time you have. So cover your face and try to breathe when you feel the pressure removed from your head. And I just kept getting smashed on the ground. And I feel like with that thinking, I got smashed into shore. And I was able to take a breath here and there. And I got out of the water, and I was beat up. And I felt like, I don't know how long I had been in the water, but it felt like I was out there for like 4 hours working out the hardest I'd ever worked out in my life. And I remember I walked out of the water, and my brother and the friend we were with had both been in the same situation, and we all just collapsed on the ground.
Yeah, but do you think that's a learned skill? So I found that over time, the ability to so you were able to relax, and like a lot of times when people go through those things and they panic, they get seriously injured or they die.
Yeah, that's what
this is you. Where I was kind of going with it was like I have another experience where I almost drowned, and I got bruised and bloodied and all smashed on these rocks and everything. But I got smashed on the rocks because I knew that was my only way out of the water. So I let the water smash me on the rocks a couple times until I finally just grabbed on. But either way, in both of those experiences where I was pretty sure I was going to die, that was what I had to do, was relax and try to have clarity and just let the situation. I mean, I guess it wasn't bad enough where it was like, hey, if I just stay here, if I were to just stay there, I would die. But the thing that I learned, I guess, the most was like, you got to relax, and you have to relax in your mind and your body. And these are the things that I talk about all the time on Wicked Chops Live, and the way that the music is and the improvisation. And it just seeped into my life at that point. This is before I met Paul. This is before I was really going down the road of I'm a professional musician. I mean, it might have been right at the time, but I had none of those experiences of that through the music. But it just now permeates my life, and I think it's because of those almost dying, and the only way that I really got out of it was to just be like, you got to calm down, and you got to think, and or whatever, and try to work your way through it.
Remember,
it's crazy, man.
Life-saving merit badge, dealing with a panic swimmer. You don't touch them. You can like reach a pole out to them, throw them something that's floating, all sorts of things. And then there's methods where you go up behind someone and you put your arm around them and you swim them in. But you don't do that to a panic swimmer. If you don't have anything, you wait for the panic swimmer to like stop panicking, basically because they're drowning, and they pass out, and then you go get them because you'll both die. Like you just don't. They'll just grab onto you, and they'll try to use you as a float, which involves pushing you down, and it doesn't improve anything. And it's the ones that panic that die.
Yeah,
I mean, this
is kind of.
Then you can't think, and you can't find your way out.
Well, this might seem like kind of a reach, but let's just say I've had a few experiences with the law. Okay, and one thing that I learned really early on is that when a police officer, for me, okay, speaking about me, when they were to, let's just say, catch me doing something, the thing that I just kind of, I don't know why, but ever since the first time it's happened to me, I always said, well, you are where you are. They got you. Now, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to be a little butthead?
Or relax.
Or are you going to just calm down and relax? And I've always been of the mindset that anytime, and that doesn't happen anymore, but anytime I got in trouble, Paul's laughing. Anytime I got in trouble, it was just, okay, just go with it. And for my 2 cents, because this is somewhat related, I can tell you that the experience was always much better for me when I learned to relax. I've had friends who have, let's say, been caught for things, and they take a different route. They start to say things negative, or they start to physically resist and things like that, and it never goes well. And I kind of look at it like the same way as, okay, if you're in a situation that's life or death, and sometimes if you're pulled over, it could be life and death, right? Yeah. Because that person is carrying a gun.
Oh, yeah.
And so the question you have to ask yourself is, how are you going to react to your surroundings? Now, again, this is different for everybody. But for me, I equate it to kind of what he's saying, which is, just bring your level down as much as you can and try to go with it. I know it doesn't always end perfectly that way, but I like to think that my odds for getting in more trouble or having something bad happen to me went down because of that. And I think it goes back to the clarity point of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
you're right.
And
right? Definitely
being
right.
calm doesn't mean walk, don't run, because the answer might be to run.
Yeah,
That's true.
It's being able to make a decision.
But know what you're doing and get out of there.
Yeah.
I had a similar sort of thing. Like, we were driving over the bridge the other day, and I said, have you ever thought about what you would do if you
went over the side?
And I proceeded to go through this whole idea of the steps that I would think that I would take, because like, what if this happens? This is I guess this is kind of a real possibility, and like I have electric windows, so like you're not putting the window down once you hit, and you probably shouldn't unbuckle. You should probably take the impact buckled up. Make sure you put your windows down, unless you got one of those tactical things that can bust them out. But like maybe even open the sunroof on your way down. I mean, it's a long enough drop up there. You might be able to do. But you got to stay calm.
Yeah.
I mean, to try and
take a deep breath.
I mean, I guess to try and thread it together. I mean, I would say it's not necessarily just life and death. It's any extremely high stressful situation.
Yeah.
Whether that's life and death or say you're giving a public speech, or you're getting pulled over by a cop, or you got caught peeing under a bridge or something. Paul's laughing now. It's really not okay. You can't change what has already taken place, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what everyone says. Oh, if I flail my arms it's okay. You're in this position now. Then what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah. And I know it's kind of corny, but it's the same thing too. Like it spreads across the board. But since the topic that we often touch on here, it's like it's the same thing with with the creative stuff too. When I'm in that moment, or I'm working on something or whatever, we all talk about it all the time. You have to be able to relax and go with it, and have that clarity so that you can figure out what's supposed to happen next or how you piece these things together.
But why do people resist that?
I think this is I think it's
just out of fear. They're scared.
I think they're scared. But I also think it's that fear is sort of embedded in our society and cultural practices. Maybe not necessarily fear itself, even though it seems to be very much fear itself as the media does its thing, and all, we're all nervous about who's going to do what to who and when. But I mean, like, I think that is part of our history at this point as we go further into what we're calling civilization. Part of what we're interested in is more control over our environment, more control over nature. We are imposing that this is how things work, that we have gathered the data and here's how it works, and we always know. And then what comes? A pandemic and wipes all that stuff out that you thought you were doing right, so X should lead to Z or whatever the letters are you want to use.
So I've been thinking a lot about this Capitol riot that took place, and everybody wants to say how bad it was, because it was, and there was a gentleman who passed away, which is tragic. I want to try to flip that and say, how much restraint and calm did it take for Capitol Police and the Secret Service and all those people to not just unload bullets on that entire crowd?
It would have been easy to stop the crowd. I hate to say it, but it would have.
They could have.
Very easy.
They could have. Oh yeah, and by the way, the 50 satellites that were looking at all those people, yeah, they could have taken them out too.
Yeah.
And so what I like to say is, wait a second. Those people were so calm of mind to allow people to come into the Capitol, to rush out all the people that were about to make a vote, and I hate to say this because it sounds trivial, but to only have, I believe it was there was a few people who passed away. Now, that mortality was awful, but the number could have been so much higher. And could you imagine if they had unloaded on all those people? It would have created more chaos.
Yeah.
So I like to think about it as the way they were trained. Yes, they should never have gotten in the first place, but once they did get in, it could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah, I agree. But on the other side of that too, I mean, the Capitol Police, there's over 2,000 of them.
Yep.
And if they knew this was coming.
Yeah.
And if they just would have been outside the Capitol on the steps, no one would have entered at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It took a lot of restraint. I was expecting, I was watching it live, and honestly, I thought that once they breached the doors, there were going to be a bunch of guys, and it was going to be like you cross the line, you get shot, and if the bullet goes through people into the rest of the crowd, that's just collateral, and it didn't happen. That was a surprise. And
I was very surprised by that.
Yeah, it would have been a totally different national tragedy, totally different type. It would have been a lot worse and calm and collected. People.
But Paul, you raised a great point. I mean, we should never have been there in the first place. But what I'm trying to say is it's, okay, so now that, this is just like we're talking about, now that you're in that situation, okay, should've, would've, could've is over.
Right.
Now they're walking into the Capitol.
Yeah.
There were police officers inside. And for them to resist the urge, because they were probably petrified.
Not only that, there were ones outside who got beat and overrun. Yeah. Literally beat, had their shields taken from them, and then beat with their own shields. Yeah. I mean, there were 2-3 people, 2-3 officer thick SWAT clothed line out front.
Yeah.
Fully armed. They took the beating.
That's crazy.
And held it as best they could and didn't fire, and yeah.
That's the same mindset though that you're touching on with the clarity.
Yep. There's a saying in military circles that is, people don't rise to the occasion, they fall back on their training. You throw someone into like a random war zone, they're not just going to get like, tough and figure these things out. They fall back on what they know and what they've rehearsed and what they've been through. And I think being through adversity, I mean, one, you can do it through training, and two, you can do it through like life events, and going through adversity prepares you for that kind of thing. My parents always made sure that we got, experiences when we were younger. Like before we can remember what our parents did with us, I was, when we were babies, they'd throw us in the water, and we were supposed to like hold your breath, wait till you pop back up, and then roll over on your back and float. And we were trained to do that before we can remember. And as we were little kids, they'd just throw us as far as they could into the pool or into the lake or into the ocean or whatever, And by the time we were like 3, we thought it was like fun, but that's what they were doing. They were getting us ready for that. They throw us as high as they could, or off a higher surface, so that we'd go deeper and we'd be accustomed to that. So then by the time I'm like, 8 and we're out in speedboats and we're jumping waves and doing crazy things, and you fall off the side of a speedboat at 30 miles an hour.
Stay calm.
Yeah. You hold your breath, you pop back up, put your hands up. Hey, I'm over here. Don't hit me. And the boat comes back around and picks you up in a couple minutes, and you're not freaking out or worried about it.
Well, I guess that's we are, as we winding up over the time, it seems like that's the deal today. Near death, in life, either way, stay calm. Relax, make it happen. So that's what we're going to do as we do the skin of the week now. I don't know how calm we'll be.
I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
All right, well, it's just like doing this show then.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, we need to thank Southern Maryland Loves You and TechPort.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you guys.
You're definitely helping the community.
This is being filmed the day before St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
So that, that's why I'm wearing this.
You'd probably wear that in a regular.
Just in case.
All right, well, let's get out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're here every week. Check out YouTube and sonic-spirits.com and southernmarylandlovesyou.org and progressculture.org, and you can find all the things. So thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Thank you all so much for being with us. We appreciate you sharing your time and consideration. Please feel free to reach out to Sonic Spirits and Progress Culture at sonic-spirits.com and progressculture.org. You can also connect with us through our sponsors at techportsomd.org and somdlovesyou.org. We'd love to hear from you if you're working on something awesome, or you have ideas for future shows, or you just like to say hello. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Much love. See you soon.